Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, happy WrestleMania Sunday to you all. I'm doing this video a little earlier than I usually do because, as of course, it is WrestleMania Sunday. I will be a little bit too busy watching WrestleMania later on today to do my usual video drop. So, with that being said, let's continue on with the next WrestleMania in our series of how I would have booked these past WrestleManias. So, moving on, we have WrestleMania 25 from 2009, Houston, Texas, Reliant Stadium. WrestleMania 25, which was incorrectly marketed as the 25th anniversary, even though it really wasn't. I hate math, but even I know that was wrong. Technically, this is the 24th anniversary of WrestleMania. The 25th anniversary would be the following year, but hey, what can you do about it? This is considered by many to be a somewhat below average WrestleMania, for the exception of one particular match on this show. So with that being said, let's get on and let's see what the WWE actually gave us that year at the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. Kicking things off on the pre-show, they had a lumberjack match to unify both the World Tag Team titles and the SmackDown Tag Team titles, in which the Colognes, Primo and Carlito, defended both champions, took on The Miz and John Morrison. This was a match that not a lot of people watching at home knew got bumped down to the pre-show because they're watching the pay-per-view, wondering when this match is going to take place. They didn't really know was on the pre-show unless they read online or they saw the highlights of it during the show. I was one of them looking forward to the match. I didn't see it anywhere. Then they said, okay, this happened on the pre-show, and it got turned into a lumberjack match, and the match was won by the Colognes. Okay, moving on to the main card. Kicking off things was the Money in the Bank ladder match. Of course, as you know me, my favorite match type is a multi-man ladder match. Money in the Bank is one of my favorite times of the year. And if you have not seen my Money in the Bank rankings on my wrestling page, what I did was I rewatched every Money in the Bank ladder match and I ranked them all. My personal opinion from worst to best. And this particular Money in the Bank ladder match from this WrestleMania, spoilers ahead, I actually ranked at number one as my favorite. We had CM Punk, Mark Henry, Finley, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, Kofi Kingston, Christian, and Kane. It was a really good match. It was just, a little bit. I would have had to go a little bit longer, but it went about a good, decent amount of time for what it was. No, I had pretty good spots here and there. In the end, I honestly didn't think, even though he's my favorite, I didn't think CM Punk would have won, especially for a second year in a row. I really thought they were going to give it to Christian, but in the end, CM Punk won. And if you were watching on live TV, you heard the crowd rooting for Christian, and surprisingly, to me, it sounded like CM Punk actually got boos as he won, because, like I said, many people were expecting Christian to be the winner. Moving on next, we had the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal, which was won by Santino Marella. So you're celebrating 25 years of WrestleMania. You have all your current women on the roster competing in this match. You bring in some of your women from the past to into this match, and you have the match won by a man, as you do. Not to mention, Kid Rock performed, had a mini concert. And none of the women were introduced individually. They all came out together during the little mini concert. So not a lot of people even knew there was past women superstars in this match unless you like really paid attention to the screen. You're like, oh, I know who that is. Yeah, because there was a couple in there that I didn't even recognize at first until the commentators pointed out who they were. So yeah, this match was won by Santino or Santina, and yeah, that dragged on for several months before they finally, yeah, axed that off. Yeah, it's not, again, this is not a good time yet for women's wrestling. It was not quite getting there. There were several good women's wrestlers at this time, but they weren't being used for that. They were still being used as eye candy during this time. so they weren't taken too much seriously, at least not for another couple of years. Up next, we had a 3-on-2 handicap elimination match in which Chris Jericho took on three legends: Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and Roddy Piper with Ric Flair in their corner. This was during a time when Chris Jericho had a mini feud with some of the legends of the past, and as I recall, I think he I don't know if he had what's the word I'm thinking of, interactions with these legends and like injured them or something. I'm trying to remember. It has been a few years. So yeah, it culminated in Chris Jericho taking on these three legends in a handicap match. If I remember correctly, Jimmy Snuka was eliminated first because he could barely walk. And then Roddy Piper was eliminated, and then Jericho and Ricky Steamboat had a little mini match towards the end, with Ricky Steamboat showing off that he could still go in the ring. The match was, of course, won by Chris Jericho. After the match, he got knocked out by Mickey Rourke. As you may or may not know, the original plan for this show was Chris Jericho to go one-on-one with Mickey Rourke, who was promoting his movie The Wrestler at the time. Um, there are several reasons why this match didn't take place. One of them, now I don't know exactly which one was really true. One was Mickey Rourke backed out, or his agent didn't want him to do it, or he spoiled what was going to happen ahead of time in the press. And I guess WWE was said about that. There was several different stories, but he did. So they didn't go with the Chris Jericho and Mickey Rourke one-on-one, but they did have an interaction after the match, and Mickey Rourke knocked out Chris Jericho, which I'm presuming is probably what would have happened if they actually had a match together in the first place. So up next, we had an Extreme Rules between brothers Matt and Jeff Hardy. Now, this was a time when people on the internet were hearing that Christian had resigned and was returning to WWE. And Jeff Hardy was at the time in the feud with Edge for the WWE title. Um, and he was having all these mysterious attacks backstage, and there was all kinds of weird accidents going on that they were filming. Of course, we knew it wasn't real. It was a storyline, but they made it seem like it was really happening. And everybody and their mother knew it was going to be Christian. They were going to reveal Christian as the person behind these attacks because Jeff Hardy was feuding with Christian's longtime partner, Edge. But I guess WWE found out that people were figuring out ahead of time, so they didn't want it to be too obvious, so they went with the swerve and turned it into Matt Hardy instead. Sometimes the obvious answer is the best answer sometimes, and this probably would have been the case here. So we had Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy facing each other in an Extreme Rules, and I don't even think it was lived up to all the hype as many people thought it would be good. Matt Hardy won, and they continued on their feud for I think another 2 months or so before Matt Hardy went back to being a babyface, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Christian versus Jeff Hardy doesn't sound too enticing one-on-one for a WrestleMania. I'm sure they probably would have made some type of stipulation or something, but I don't know. But we'll get to that when we get to my rebooking of this. So up next was JBL defending the Intercontinental Championship against Rey Mysterio. This match was won by Rey Mysterio in about 20 seconds or so. And after this, JBL announced his retirement, and he's pretty much been retired since. This was like his second mini run since the last time he retired. Like a couple years back, I think it was to Rey Mysterio as well. And he came out of retirement for about 2 years, and then he retired again. And as far as we know, he's been retired ever since. But yeah, the match was won by Rey Mysterio, winning his first Intercontinental title. I also remember Rey Mysterio coming out dressed up as the Joker from The Dark Knight, my favorite Batman movie. Up next is what many people consider, and rightfully so, to be the greatest WrestleMania match of all time: Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. I remember watching this live on pay-per-view, and I'm like, yes, it was definitely an amazing match, and it should rightfully be considered the greatest WrestleMania match of all time because it just really was. You had two all-time greats, two legends, just letting it all out in the ring. There wasn't too much of a backstory. It was just Shawn Michaels wanted to be the one step up to end the streak. is way better than what they originally wanted, which was, I believe, Undertaker versus Vladimir Kozlov, and I don't think anybody wanted to see that at WrestleMania. I probably wouldn't. I mean, it would have robbed us of this masterpiece. But yeah, it was an amazing match. The only real downspout was probably when the Undertaker almost landed on his head when he flipped over the ring to land outside. And again, one of the wrestlers dressed up as a cameraman didn't really catch him correctly, and it could have ended very horribly there. But thankfully it didn't, and the Undertaker won, extending his WrestleMania streak to, I want to say this was um, 18. I want to say 18 and 0. I have to look into that. Up next was a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was Edge defending against Big Show and John Cena. This was also when all three men were somewhat, well, at least Big Edge and Big Show were involved with Vicky Guerrero and some love triangle, and John Cena was just there pretty much. Typical triple threat match. John Cena wins. He did a double FU on Edge and the Big Show, or attitude adjustment, whatever you want to call it. And he won, winning another world championship to his resume. And up next, in the main event, it was Triple H defending the WWE title against Randy Orton. Many people consider this to be one of the worst main events in WrestleMania history. The build up to this match was very, very good. You had the whole Randy Orton going psycho and doing all kinds of just random shit. Fucking RKOing Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and kissing her in front of Triple H. We had Triple H invading Randy Orton's home. The build up was good. The match was a letdown. They probably would have done a lot better. One, if it didn't have to follow Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, and two, if they added like a no disqualification or some type of match to make this of all the stuff that was going on. These guys hated each other so much. If they added no DQ, Extreme Rules, something, it probably would have been a lot better. But no, they had a straight up wrestling match where if Triple H lost, if he'll be disqualified, which made no sense. In the end, Triple H won. Randy Orton won the WWE title from Triple H a month later at Backlash. So yeah, and yeah, so yeah. With that being said, that's what the WWE gave us for the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, which it really wasn't. So moving on, let's see how I would have redone WrestleMania 25. For one thing, I would not market it as the 25th anniversary because it wasn't. So let's go to how I would have redone this. This is one of those WrestleManias which I rebooked a few years after it was done. So just going back and remembering what were the storylines, just what kind of going on. So let's kick that off. Started things off on the pre-show. We would have had a good old-fashioned battle royal. Nothing too fancy or nothing. Just everyone who's not competing, let's just throw them in a pre-show battle royal, which I honestly think is a pretty good way. You want to get everybody on the card, throw them on a pre-show battle royal. At least they get to experience the WrestleMania atmosphere, the WrestleMania feeling. They may not be on the main card, but at least they'll get to come out, on the stage, and arena, everything in front of all the fans, and at least have somewhat of a, WrestleMania moment, even though it's on a pre-show. But yeah, that's how I probably would do it. Just so yeah, I would have booked a battle royal, and I would still would give the win to Santino because he's probably one of the most over superstars at the time that I don't have booked on the main show. But at least he would have won as Santino and not as Santina. So yeah, that probably would have saved a lot of people a lot of headaches. So moving on to the main card, we're gonna kick things off again with the Money in the Bank ladder match with a couple with some a little bit differences in here. And these participants are Finley, Mark Henry, Kofi Kingston, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Kane. We are swapping out CM Punk and Christian, and we are replacing them with the Big Show and Tommy Dreamer. If I remember reading somewhere correctly, I believe Tommy Dreamer was actually originally supposed to be in this match, and for whatever reason, they went and changed it. So this is when ECW was still around, the WWE version. So they didn't really have no ECW representation on this show. So I think that would have been a nice way to actually get someone from ECW on there. So I'm adding Big Show and Tommy Dreamer to this match. I believe, I don't remember who the hell I put down to win this match. Mm, I don't ever think I. I'm checking in my notes. I don't even think who I put down who I think would win. Um, Tell you what, we'll go with Tommy Dreamer as the winner, and then he can cash in on the ECW title on ECW or a one night stand or something. So yeah. Up next, we have a fatal four way women's championship match, but this isn't just your typical fatal four way. We have the women's champion Melina, the Divas champion Maurice, and we also have the Beth Phoenix and Michelle McCool. Now, here's how I would have done this to get both champions on there, and we have four of the actual good in-ring competitors as far as the women's division goes at the time. This fatal four-way match, if either champion is pinned, then they lose their title to the superstar that pinned them. That's how I would have done that. Fatal four way for either the women's or Divas title. Both champions are defending. Um, they both have a chance of losing their title in this match. Of course, for the challengers, Beth Phoenix and Michelle McCool, in order for them to walk out with a title, they would have to pin either champion. Now, it kind of sucks because usually I have a good remembrance of who was champion at what time. But since the women's and divas titles were cared so less about this time, and were tossed around here and there, I had to actually look up to see who was the champion at this time, and I was just surprised to see who the champions were. But in this matchup, I think I'm going to be biased. And I'm going to give the win to Maurice, let her retain her title because Maurice is one of my favorite women's superstars of all time. So yeah, up next match, we would have had the winner take all match for the tag team titles. The Miz and John Morrison against the Colognes. Pretty much the same match, same result, same outcome. The only difference is we're moving it from the pre show to the main card, and it is not going to be a lumberjack match. It's just going to be a straight up tag team match. And we'll still give the win to Carlito and Primo. Up next, we have the Intercontinental title. We have CM Punk defending against Rey Mysterio, a match that took place at next year's WrestleMania. We're moving it back here in this timeline. CM Punk doesn't lose the title to JBL; he holds on to it, and him and Rey Mysterio have a one-on-one match for that title at WrestleMania instead. Where does that leave JBL? We'll get to that in a minute. Up next, we have Chris Jericho versus Jerry the King Lawler. Now you're probably like, okay, why it sounds kind of random. But here's the thing: we would have kept the storyline in which Chris Jericho was feuding with all these legends, all these, old golden age superstars, Ricky Steamboat and all them. And the way I would have done it is I would have had Jerry Lawler be the one to try and put a stop to Chris Jericho messing around with all these legends. That gives Jerry the King Lawler his WrestleMania in ring debut, and it also saves us from his debut WrestleMania match having to be against Michael Cole 2 years later. So I would have had Jerry the King make his first WrestleMania match at the 25th anniversary against Chris Jericho. Of course, I will give Chris Jericho the win, and then he can go on to continue his feud that he had next with Rey Mysterio over the Intercontinental title. Up next, as I said, we're gonna have the match that we probably should have had. It's an Extreme Rules tag team match. The Hardy Boys against Edge and Christian. As I said, sometimes the obvious answer is the best answer. And in this timeline, I would have had Christian be the one to be revealed as Jeff Hardy's attacker. And then I would have had Matt Hardy come out to Jeff Hardy's aid. This would have reunited the Hardy Boys and reignited the feud between Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. Of course, this would mean that Edge would have to lose his WWE title since he was a champion at the time. So in this alternate universe, he still loses the WWE title to Triple H in the Elimination Chamber. Like I say, we have the Hardy Boys cost him the match. This leads to Edge and Christian against the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania in an Extreme Rules because that's the type of match they always usually had with each other. And it probably would have been a lot better than the Hardy Boys one-on-one. So yeah, and in this match, I think I'm going to give the win to Edge and Christian. Then this would lead to Matt Hardy turning on Jeff Hardy, and they could have had their little mini feud going down the line. I would have had Edge and Christian branch out to become a tag team of their own. They could have challenged Primo and Carlito for the tag team titles, win them, and then probably resume it if maybe Matt Hardy doesn't turn on Jeff Hardy, and they could resume their feud that they have with Edge and Christian, leading to a TLC match at SummerSlam that year. The possibilities are pretty endless. It's just they decided to not go with the obvious route and go with the more unpredictable one. But like I said, sometimes the obvious choice is the better choice. It just got super bright in here because I'm the opposite side of the window and the sun just came in. So excuse the right there it goes. Okay, up next, this is where the top of the card somewhat changes. We're gonna have a World Heavyweight Championship match. JBL defending against Shawn Michaels. You're probably thinking to yourself, how the hell did we get here? Now, one of the main downsides of this is that we don't get Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I can't give you that, but this is the way I would have done it. And let me tell you how we would have got here. As you remember, around this time, there was a storyline going around in which Shawn Michaels was broke for some reason. That was like probably one of the most unrealistic storylines that had going on. I mean, you've been wrestling for all these years, and how the hell do you get broke all of a sudden? So he turned to JBL for assistance because, as we know, the JBL character was like a multi-millionaire or whatever, which led to Shawn Michaels pretty much working for JBL. Again, it's pretty not logical, but yeah, he ended up becoming like JBL's like personal goon or whatever, where he had to pretty much do what JBL wanted him to do, or he would fire him from his contract. Yeah, this led to at the Royal Rumble. JBL challenged John Cena for the World Championship with Shawn Michaels in his corner. He wanted Shawn Michaels to help him win. That didn't happen, and John Cena retained his title. This led to JBL versus Shawn Michaels at Elimination Chamber the month prior, and then they went off in their separate ways. Now, if I was doing this, I would have had to pay off to this match because they actually started this back in, I think, November it was. So I would have had to pay off, at WrestleMania. So the way I would have done this is I would have had Shawn Michaels accidentally cost John Cena the world title at Royal Rumble. This would lead to JBL winning the world title, and then he would want to go on to so I would have had, instead of at Elimination Chamber, we have the Elimination Chamber for Edge's WWE title, which puts that out of the way. And then for instead of the World Championship, we have a number one contenders match, which would include John Cena, Shawn Michaels, and whoever else was in that chamber originally. JBL doesn't want Shawn Michaels to be in the match because in case he wins, he has to challenge him. Shawn Michaels wins. He challenges JBL at WrestleMania, thus ending his ownership of him, I guess you can call it. So I would give the win to Shawn Michaels, give him one last championship run before he retires the following year, and then it would also be a good moment for Shawn Michaels since he is from Texas, and what better way to win your last world championship in your home state against the guy you've been feuding with. So I personally think that storyline should have ended at WrestleMania instead of Elimination Chamber the month before. But hey, what can you do? Up next, I'm pretty sure I told you at the beginning of this series that when I rebooked these, there was going to be several moments where I think WWE could have realistically booked Undertaker and John Cena one-on-one at WrestleMania. This is one of them. So my next match is Undertaker versus John Cena. Again, I'm sorry it takes away Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. The sun is coming back out, and now it's making things brighter again. So excuse me. What would have happened here is that John Cena would have lost the number one contenders Elimination Chamber the month prior to Shawn Michaels. That leaves him without a clear path towards WrestleMania. Both world titles are booked already. So instead, he would have came out, and instead of challenging for the title, he wants to challenge for the next big thing in wrestling, WrestleMania, and that is the streak. Undertaker, of course, comes out, accepts the challenge, and there you go. It was that easy. Undertaker versus John Cena at the 25th anniversary of Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania, what the hell did I just say? Yeah, it's like I said, and we'll see As I do a couple more of these down the line, you're going to see again how they had the perfect opportunity to do Undertaker versus John Cena at WrestleMania, and they didn't. Instead, by the time they finally did, it was a squash match, and both men were already way past their primes already anyway. But yeah, so here's the first instance. I want to say I probably have this match like booked like maybe like 3 or 4 more times um, that they could have actually realistically done it. Also, like I said, when I rebook these, when I rebook the next year's WrestleMania, I don't do it as a continuation of the WrestleMania I booked the year before. The way I do it is I usually go around what storylines and superstars on the roster at that time. I don't go with okay, well I booked this year. How would I book this guy next year? I don't do it as a continually singular timeline. It's if that makes sense. I just go with whatever. So say for example, I just did book WrestleMania 24. I'm pretty much ignoring what I did in 24. I'm rebooking 25 now. I'm basically ignoring what I did in 24, and these are all pretty much their own separate little multiverse timelines. If that makes sense. So yeah, that's what. So you're probably wondering, well, why would you book Undertaker and John Cena to fight so many times at WrestleMania? That's not the case. I'm just booking these. These are alternate timelines, pretty much. Oh, these are all separate. They're not a continuing long line. You get what I mean. I don't want to make it sound too complicated. But yeah, Undertaker and John Cena meeting at WrestleMania 25. Undertaker wins, of course, continuing the streak. And that leaves us to our main event. And we're unfortunately going to keep it as the WWE title. Triple H defending against Randy Orton. We're going to keep the same build and everything. The only difference I would do is remove the whole if Triple H gets disqualified, he loses. Now, I probably could have added a stipulation like no disqualification, but we already had an Extreme Rules. We already had a ladder match, so I want to, we want to do overkill. So we're gonna keep it a straight one-on-one match between Triple H and Randy Orton. Um, I kind of want to say I would give Randy Orton the win, but at the same time, you want Triple H to, give him this comeuppance for all the problems and shit he's caused over the last couple months. But I really think I would have booked Randy Orton to win here. So yeah, there you have it. WrestleMania 25, the incorrectly advertised 25th anniversary. That's how I would have done it. What did you think? Did you like what we got better? Do you like what I did better? What would you have done? What would you have changed? Would you have left it the way it is? What would you have done differently in this WrestleMania? As always, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the comments. I love to hear your opinions. All of it is appreciated. Good, positive, negative, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's WrestleMania Sunday. Last night's WrestleMania Night 1 was something. I'll probably I don't know if I'll do an in-depth review of that, but just a couple of quick thoughts. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that felt that every single match was like in and out, in and out, in and out, rest real fast. Also, I think the highlight for me is the return of Paige, who has always been one of my number one favorites, and I'm so happy she came back. Yes, I almost cried. I was kind of upset because AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch, a match I was looking forward to. Two of my all-time faves. I was kind of upset because one, the match wasn't as long as I thought it would be, and two, because they did not show the hype video for this match, and I was super excited because they showed it on I think it was Raw or SmackDown, and they used in the hype video they used a song from one of my favorite bands, The Warning. If you know me, you know how much I love that band, and I was very overexcited and emotional when I saw that they used one of their newest songs in that video package. So I was like, holy shit, they used The Warning on there. So I was looking forward to seeing it, at WrestleMania, but they didn't play the video, so I was kind of upset about that. Like I said, I was also upset because the match wasn't as long as I thought it would be. A lot of these matches last night were like over before you know it. But hey, what can you do? They said they had on a 4-hour wrestling show, they had like maybe 40 minutes of wrestling and like 3 hours of commercials. But hey, what can you do? I mean, pay for what you get. So yeah, there we go. I hope you enjoyed this newest WrestleMania rebooking video. I will see you next time for our next WrestleMania. As I said in the last one, we are now going to continue straight through. There's not going to be no more skipping this WrestleMania or glossing over. We're going to go straight from here all the way to this year's WrestleMania. I've been keeping up the schedule of doing it every Sunday, and I guess we're fine with that. So it'll probably be a couple weeks before we get to this year's WrestleMania. Don't worry, I have them all written down. I got my notes and everything. So yeah, and eventually we'll get caught up to when I started doing these in real time. Like I said, a lot of these I was going back and redoing them. Not, I think it starts with WrestleMania 30 that I was doing them in real time. These rebookings. So yeah, we're almost there. We'll get there. We'll get there. If you're enjoying these, time will go by fast. But yeah, all right. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, until next time, if you haven't asked me about it, chances are I'm going to talk about it anyway. Thank you.